little Potter stood in the great hall. Poor little Potter saw all his friends fall. And Dumbledore's thestrals and Dumbledore's men couldn't stop Voldy from rising again. So Smarty Potter had a great plan. Smarty Potter could be the only man. He'd find every Horcrux, he said with no glee, and put every one deep up inside of me. Brave Potter, his heart was in flux. Brave Potter made love to Voldy's Horcrux. Now pregnant Potter was full head to shoe. Nowhere could be found the Dark Lord, you know who. Do 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 Harry Potter and the Unborn Child. Written by Maya Ben David, read by Ian Soder. Harry found himself in a drafty Muggle hospital waiting room, adjusting his ill-fitted jeans and looking indignant. Ron and Hermione had just returned from checking him in, and they looked utterly exhausted. "Bought you some?" Ron paused, looking curiously at the Muggle chocolate bars he had just procured from an ill-stocked candy machine. Mars bars. He handed it to Harry, who tore open the wrapper and inhaled it in one enormous bite. "Right," Hermione said. "Now I suppose we... wait." Shifting uncomfortably with no more work to be done. Sitting and waiting was one of Hermione's most loathed activities. For months, Harry, Ron, and Hermione had spent hours poring over books in the library at the Ministry of Magic. This library met Hermione's scrutinizing approval, that is, until it ultimately disappointed her, bearing no helpful fruit for their research. Despite having access to this magnificent, seemingly endless archive, they did not feel confident in delivering Harry's baby magically.
"It's just too complicated. There are too many variables,"
sighed Hermione after every trip to the library. They found books about babies performing magic in the womb, books about wizards storing items in their stomach, even Muggle books about trans men who can become pregnant, which Hermione pocketed for further reading. But none about pregnancy from the consumption of a Horcrux. Time had run out, and this is why they found themselves in a dreary Muggle hospital in a small town in London.
"You should have hired a midwife," muttered Mrs. Weasley, not so quietly as she bustled into the waiting room with proper snacks, which Harry was eyeing hungrily.
"All this research and secretiveness, and none of you thought to ask a mother. Honestly, for all that school taught you about spells and curses, they certainly skipped over crucial lessons about the magic of the body."
Ron turned beet red, and Hermione looked ashamed. They had not wanted to worry Mrs. Weasley after all that had happened this past year. The tragic death of her dear son Fred, and other countless losses from the battle at Hogwarts. But of course, Mrs. Weasley knew their secret instantly, the moment Harry had stepped foot inside the burrow. Having skipped their 7th year at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, being on the run from you-know-who, Harry, Ron, and Hermione had been extended personal invitations to return for their final year from the headmistress herself, Professor McGonagall. "Another year at Hogwarts? Sounds like a cruel joke," sighed Ron. With zero hesitation, they inked their quills and released an owl with their letters declining. Something had been occupying their urgent attention. Less than 2 months after Lord Voldemort, the most dangerous dark wizard of his time, was famously defeated by Harry himself in the epic and still feverishly recounted battle at Hogwarts, Harry felt not the prickle of his scar, but a prickle in his stomach. The 3 close friends turned as a Muggle doctor cleared her throat. She was a powerful-looking woman, with a tight, stern expression as she read off her chart. Harry Potter. She motioned for the four to follow her. I am Dr. Mitzi Wolfond, the third. Hermione's eyes narrowed. Aren't you? Dr. Wolfond interrupted curtly. You may recognize my name as I share it with my late grandmother, the eccentric author. Well now, where is Harry Potter? Hermione looked distracted, having pulled out a copy of Your First Full Moon. What to expect if you suspect, from an impossibly small purse, which had been enchanted to store all sorts of treasures, and began scanning the book feverishly. As Harry got up, with great trouble, clutching his very large and cumbersome stomach, he thought of Ginny and wondered why she wasn't here yet. Dr. Wolfond took a long look at him, glanced at her chart, and said, Taking you to a private room. Dr. Wolfond rolled up her sleeves to reveal long scars, running up and down both arms. Her face was unreadable, as she asked Harry various questions about his prenatal diet. The protective paper covering the examination table he was lying on crinkled, and Harry had no answers. He felt somehow more exposed lying on the cold hospital bed than he had ever felt striding down the Hogwarts halls, having people point and whisper about his scar. Hermione was looking at the scars on Dr. Wolfond's arms with a curious expression. She started cautiously dancing around the question everyone was thinking. How did you... Werewolves, Dr. Wolfond interrupted, and then burst into a hearty, barking laugh, which Ron and Hermione returned nervously, looking at each other, unsure if she was joking or not. Harry was silent, clutching his stomach, and Dr. Wolfond gave him a dark look. It's about time we take a look in there, don't you think? Dr. Wolfond grasped Harry's waist and with surprising Herculean strength gracefully placed him on his feet. Harry's stomach burst into pain as his feet hit the tiled floor and he clutched it wildly, heaving and gasping for breath. Ron and Hermione stared anxiously at each other, but Dr. Wolfond and Mrs. Weasley were right next to Harry, helping him through the contractions. Someone's in a big hurry, Dr. Wolfond chuckled good-naturedly as she unbuttoned Harry's taut shirt, which was pleading to be released. There we are, she said as she started examining Harry's exposed bare belly. There was a gasp from Ron, Hermione, and Mrs. Weasley. Over the past few months, Harry had only let them look at his stomach while it was partially covered. They were all wondering how he had gotten so large so quickly. Mrs. Weasley burst into tears, and when Harry started to awkwardly cover his stomach in embarrassment, she threw a tight hug around his swollen torso and said, It's perfect! With this, Harry felt a rush of love towards Mrs. Weasley and was momentarily relaxed. He took a deep breath. Aye, that I would agree, miss. Everything looks perfectly healthy and timely, Dr. Wolfond said, as she was checking Harry's vitals. Harry was frightened, but he tried not to show it. In fact, his mind was racing with what felt like a bubbling cauldron of conflicting emotions. Just give me a moment, said Harry, as Dr. Wolfond prepped his epidural. Harry, what is it? Said Ron, who moved in closer to Harry. The others took the hint and gave them some space. I'm just scared, you know? It's embarrassing. And I feel bad. You two are always there for me, and I always put you in situations. Everything hurts, and what if Ginny hates me for this? I'm so tired. Mate, said Ron gently. Gryffindor's down by 90. The weather is all crummy, it's pouring, and you've got bloody Malfoy on your tail, but you gotta catch this... Honestly, Ronald, interrupted Hermione, charmed by his sentiment, but not impressed by his tactics. I think what Ron is trying to say is that we are all cheering for you in the Quidditch stands.
As Ron and Hermione fussed over what Ron was trying to say, Harry started to feel something he couldn't quite place. An overwhelming, inexplicable desire to laugh. It boiled over in him as Dr. Wolfond administered Muggle pain meds into his system, and intensified as Ron, Hermione, and Mrs. Weasley each put an encouraging hand on him. As he was positioned for labor, Harry couldn't help but feel awestruck. He felt overwhelmingly grateful towards his friends, and started to uncontrollably chuckle.
"Blimey, Harry, you having a little jest?"
started Ron, half smiling, relief etching across his face.
"Yeah,"
said Harry, placing a hand on his belly.
"Reckon I'll name 'em Voldy."